So speaking more about DC Spark and specifically Fund 9, what proposals in Fund 9 are the most important to you? Ones that maybe you have mentioned that you want to go more into, or ones that you haven't?
Yeah, so a lot of our work is actually funded by Catalyst as a company. And so CARP, for example, was a Catalyst proposal that we made. And CARP has gained a lot of traction. I'll say we've deployed it for Flint, but it has over 50 stars on GitHub. So a lot of other projects are now using it, such as EndMaker, such as ErgoDex, and a few other companies are using CARP at this point. And so we want to continue paying for the maintenance of CARP and continue development of CARP as more features get added to Cardano. For example, we recently added the Vassal support, which, as you can imagine, requires a decent amount of work. We also have proposals for continued work on the REST SDK of Cardano. And so the REST SDK is, as you may know, is what is currently being used to power a lot of DEXs and just dApps on Cardano in general, along with a lot of wallets and tools. And the REST SDK we've built for Cardano, actually, interestingly, is primarily generated from the specification. You take the Cardano specification and you generate code from the specification to get a REST SDK to make sure it's correct. That's why a lot of people use it, because it has a very good correctness in the way it works. But actually, for this Fund 9, instead of focusing on adding more features, we're focusing a lot on improving the quality of the code generation you get from this tool. And actually, we're going to have a demo of this, of our V2 of this code generation tool, and you're going to be blown away. Like, it's going to be really awesome. But basically, what we're trying to aim for is that for dApps on Cardano, for standards like SIP25 on Cardano metadata standards, and for the core Cardano specification, you can just input into this program, and it just gives you SDKs that work for Rust, WebAssembly, and JSON. And so I think this will hugely speed up Cardano dApp development, because if you have a dApp and you need to figure out how to store data on your dApp, you no longer need to spend weeks trying to fine tune the data structures and figure out how to get that working. Your web application is a huge pipeline you have to work on. From this tool, you'll now be able to take the specification of your dApp, feed it to this program, and you automatically get an SDK that works on your backend and your front end and can communicate to other applications through JSON, even show stuff to the user. So I think this will be a huge improvement for dApp development experience on Cardano, and that's a set of proposals that I'm really excited about. We were kind of hesitant to make one proposal for this whole architecture, because the fear with Catalyst is that if you build something too abstract, it's really hard for people to conceptualize why this is important. So we instead split up this proposal into many different proposals for more concrete use cases that people might have an easier time understanding.
Yeah, and it's also important too to not make the fund size too large as well for the ranked voting. Well, thank you so much.
All this is part of.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. All this is part of trying to make Cardano more accessible. So the card development, the generation of SDKs is all about trying to build a really robust open source ecosystem for Cardano, where you don't have to rely on closed source paid solutions. You can bootstrap a solution yourself and make it really cheap. And we have other Catalyst proposals all kind of in that range of categories. So for example, we have what we're calling Cardano one box solution. So if you want to build a wallet on Cardano, you can just download this program, you launch it, and it automatically syncs CARP, it syncs the token registry, it syncs all the different services you need, Ogmios, everything. And you no longer have to spend weeks learning about all the different services, how they work, how to deploy them on your machine. You just have one solution, you launch them, and it gives you all the endpoints you need. And so these are kind of the solutions that we're trying to tackle to just make Cardano easy. If you want to deploy a dApp on Cardano, you get the one box, you launch it, you write your specification, you generate the SDK, and you're good to go. And that's really the experience we want.
That's awesome. Actually, it's a little behind the scenes right now, but I am building a dApp on Cardano, and that's what our team's been spending a lot of time on is learning Ogmios and DB Sync and, learning about other alternatives that are coming out like CARP. And I could just see the utility there. It just, it allows dApp developers to spend a lot more time, developing and not interacting with, all of these things that they need to have for their application. But yeah, great. So we covered those. What about Milkomeda? For someone that's never heard of Milkomeda, what is it?
Yeah, so the idea of Milkomeda is to basically add EVM functionality to non-EVM blockchains. So as you know, the EVM is what is used for writing Solidity smart contracts. So if you write a contract in Solidity, that's a programming language, and it runs on something called the EVM. And so right now, there's a lot of Solidity developers because of the power of Ethereum and Binance Chain and Avalanche to a certain extent, all these large blockchains that use Solidity for their smart contract development. And so there's a lot of developers out there that know Solidity and don't know Plutus, which is a smart contract for platform for Cardano. And so we want to tell those users, hey, look, Cardano is a really competitive platform. We understand that you have a lot of code already written, but now you can bring this over to Cardano. And that's the basic idea of Milkomeda. Now, one thing that's really interesting about Milkomeda is that unlike a lot of projects, we're trying to do this by being incentive aligned with a project we're deploying to. What does that mean? So if you look at a solution like Polygon, you might have heard of, which is like a very popular blockchain, they're a sidechain for Ethereum, but they introduced their own token, right? So if you want to have access to like this faster environment, you have to now go purchase their token. This is obviously a kind of a user experience pain, and then you're kind of this other ecosystem. And we didn't like that model. Cardano's, one of the most, if not the most secure blockchain in the world at this point. It'd be a huge waste for us to like just throw that away and just build some, other kind of thing that lives beside Cardano. And so we want to really leverage Cardano, which is why we decided not to have our own token. And we have ADA as the base token, so you don't have any token you need to buy to interact with the protocol. And it's why we've been building bridges, and we're doing a lot of research into layer 2s to basically leverage the security and the properties of Cardano as much as we can.
Awesome. So currently, Milkomeda is a sidechain on Cardano, but moving forward, you guys want to get to using Milkomeda on the layer 2 with ZK rollups, so you actually can use the security of the Cardano blockchain, correct?
Yeah, so basically Cardano right now, you can do sidechains on Cardano, but layer 2s are not really possible on Cardano at the moment. With Vasa, it'll be somewhat possible to do layer 2s. It'll not be the easiest environment, but it'll be possible. If you want to know why building layer 2s on Cardano is tricky, I actually have a video about it on my personal YouTube channel called like how Cardano handles data, something like that. If you want to go check it out.
We can link that down below. No problem.
Yeah, but basically the way Cardano is architectured is to maximize decentralization, which means that Cardano wants to stay as slim as possible so that it's really cheap for anybody, even if they are using a laptop to build up a node, which is, these properties, which are obviously very desirable, also make it hard to build proper layer 2s for Cardano. And so it's a hard problem. And Vassal kind of helps unlock some of the use cases, and actually reference inputs helps a lot with layer 2 use cases, but it'll still be kind of difficult. But so for Cardano, we have the sidechain, but we didn't want to just like build a sidechain and then just wait for the proposals we have in Cardano to be implemented. We wanted to, keep being active and keep, pushing the R&D forward. And so we've decided to deploy on Algorand, which, as you may know, is another blockchain that's very philosophically aligned with Cardano. They're both proof of stake protocols. They're both research development, like research focused projects. A lot of the research papers reference each other. And so we thought this is an ecosystem with a lot of synergy with Cardano. And it's an ecosystem that also had the right functionality to support layer 2s at the moment. And so we've built a layer 2 version of Milkomeda for Algorand. It's currently running on the Algorand testnet, and we'll hopefully have it running on the Algorand mainnet maybe sometime end of September. And so you'll also have that to look forward to. And then hopefully, as we continue to bring this technology to Algorand, we can take all the R&D we do and bring that to the Cardano ecosystem as well. And hopefully that'll help cross-pollinate the two projects, and also bring a lot of value to Cardano users as well.
Yeah, so with your Algorand launch, and congratulations that you guys got that running on the testnet, that's actually already a layer 2 application on Cardano. So, that states that Algorand already has the ability there. Does that use ZK rollups as well, or is that something that's coming in the future?
Yeah. So actually, we don't use ZK rollups. We use a kind of new kind of rollup that isn't really deployed anywhere else at the moment. And the reason why is because if you think about how to build a layer 2, there's kind of two things you want. There's flexibility and safety, right? And usually what happens is that the more flexibility you have, the less safety you have. So more concretely, a sidechain has maximum flexibility. With a sidechain, you can do a different virtual machine for smart contracts. You can do a different consensus algorithm. You can do whatever you want. So you have the full flexibility, but it's the least safe approach because it doesn't reuse the safety of Cardano and the safety of the Cardano stake pools. On the other side, you have ZK rollups, which are the safest because it uses zero-knowledge cryptography, so you can prove that things are correct just using pure math, but also has the least flexibility. If you've ever looked at any of the kind of ZK rollup projects, you know that even just trying to get the simplest thing done on these protocols is extremely difficult and not only is it extremely difficult to get working, if you have to try and like update it, this is like also like a huge effort, and there's no really a good upgrade path for these protocols. And so optimistic rollups are something that you may have also heard of that's somewhere in between. It gives you more flexibility than ZK rollup, but also less safety. With the constraint of optimistic rollups is that they have to have the same virtual machine as the base layer, which means it's not suited for our use case because we're going from EVM to Plutus, right? It's two different smart contract programming languages. So actually optimistic rollups are not viable for our specific use case. So what we've been working on is something that's in between sidechains and optimistic rollups that still leverages the security of main protocol, but allows us to switch out the virtual machine for the EVM. And so as far as I know, we're kind of like the main company looking into this, but there may be some other companies coming in and competing in the future. But that's what the Milkomeda project is all about, bringing different virtual machines to different ecosystems, with Cardano and Algorand being the first two.
That's very interesting. So, you mentioned that because of Cardano, you're going to have to use ZK rollups because, it's Plutus. Algorand, though, is Algorand EVM?
Yeah, so we're not using ZK rollups is the thing. So we have
Yeah.
our
Well,
own
I meant
solution.
because you mentioned that you're
And
using, some form of, ZK and optimistic, and somewhere in the middle there, you guys are exploring your own path.
I don't know. So ZK rollups is over here.
Okay.
Optimistic is over here. Sidechains is over here.
Okay.
And we're somewhere kind of in between sidechains and optimistic rollups.
Okay.
And the Algorand ecosystem also is not EVM. They use something called AVM, and their main programming language is called Teal. So they also have their own system